Yo, yo, what up? 2 weeks without cannabis. This is the 14-day check-in without cannabis. And I feel good. I feel stoked, actually. So, it's been pretty easy. Surprising. Very surprising. In the past 2 years, I've tried to quit cannabis on and off. I would taper. I would change my usage here and there. I would switch to edibles. I would switch to CBD. But this time I haven't used any CBD. I haven't smoked any flower. I haven't done any concentrates. And honestly, I'm pretty normal right now. I will say I have had the cravings here and there, just because I have it. I have access to it. I don't have to pay for it, and so it would be very easy for me to just go and use it and not care and just, like nothing, no big deal. But I stuck to my guns and I feel great. The first few days initially were pretty tough, I will say that, but not as tough as in the past. In the past, I've had horrible night sweats, like waking up drenched in sweat. I've had experiences with terrible nightmares. I've even had like rash, like almost like a rash outbreak on my lung area where my ribs are. And I honestly think it's because a lot of the cannabis that's being produced by these legal dispensaries is being produced by synthetic chemical fertilizers. So anytime you hear somebody say salts, like when they're growing with salts, that's what I'm talking about. Now, these fertilizers are often contaminated with heavy metals. So personally, I haven't gone to the doctor to verify that, but just based on my experience, I honestly believe I was detoxing those contaminants from years of using dispensary weed. Now, that's also why I started growing myself, because I didn't trust the weed that I was buying, because I used to see so many things in the industry going on, like moldy weed, just outright things that shouldn't have been done. Like heavy metals is a real problem in just produce in general. Most people are unaware of this. I've done a little bit of research on it online, and you can find some articles that talk about the amount of lead, cadmium, arsenic, and other heavy metals that are in these fertilizers. And they often get by because of companies that have poor practices, and maybe these regulations aren't as tight enough. So I don't know. This is just me guessing. But I say all that to say that this time around, it's not been as hard. I got my sleep back within about 7 days, like my normal sleep schedule. And honestly, a big thing I want to emphasize to people is cannabis can deplete you of nutrients. So, and you can look this up online. Cannabis can deplete you, specifically smoking it can deplete you of magnesium. So smokers in general, not just cannabis, cigarette smokers, any type of smoke will deplete the magnesium supplies in the body. Now, I think there's other things too. There's other vitamins and nutrients that can be depleted from constantly intaking smoke. And I honestly believe that I was probably chronically deficient in some of these things for years. Just because I recently started supplementing with copper. And ever since then, my sleep has drastically improved. And I've noticed this in the past too. When I would eat beef liver, which is super high in copper, I would get very sleepy, and I would have amazing sleep and really deep sleep and vivid dreams. And the same thing happened this time. I made a big pot of rice. I infused it with copper, and my sleep has been crazy. Like, I've been glued to the bed. So, there's hope for people who are using cannabis for sleep or for other things. You just gotta figure out what the root of the issue is. And I think the problem with cannabis is it can mask a lot of these problems. It can make you feel better temporarily, and it can kind of artificially induce sleep, or maybe not artificially, but it can put you to sleep. But it might not be getting to the root cause of things. So I just wanted to do this update because I feel great. And, I really think exercise has been the main thing that's allowed me to keep my cannabis consumption somewhat controlled, because when you exercise, cardio, and heavy lifting, you release your own cannabinoids. And you want your body to keep producing your own endocannabinoids. You don't want to just be completely dependent on cannabis. But yeah, I feel great. I think I was just ready for this chapter of my life to just really see what a sober life is. I don't drink. I don't really do anything. Nicotine, I do. Caffeine. But those things to me, are not addictive. I know that people will say nicotine is addictive. I personally believe the way I consume it with gum is not an issue. I don't like smoking cigarettes. I don't do vapes and all that. So this time around, just wanted to do this update and say that I feel real positive. There is going to be ups and downs. Another thing is emotions. If you are using cannabis to mask your emotions, whether you're stressed or maybe you're just not happy with your life, or you're complacent, or maybe you're procrastinating, maybe you have issues with your girlfriend or boyfriend, whatever, your job stress, I get it. I use cannabis for all those reasons too. But you're going to have to face those emotions at some point. They're going to come back, especially if you stop. If you keep using, you can keep throwing them to the back of your mind, into your subconscious, and maybe hope that you'll deal with them some other way. And it's possible. I've done it. But I think really stopping has shown me that there were things inside my subconscious that I wasn't really aware of. And a lot of these emotions came back. I recently lost a family member, and a lot of these emotions came from that. And it's healthy. We have to face these things. And I personally don't believe that you should base your life on emotions. I think emotions can be damaging most of the time, but you have to be able to face them. I don't identify with my emotions. They're not me. My emotions, I look at them as an external thing. I don't identify with them, because I think when you identify with them, you can take on the identity of depression. You can take on the identity of anxiety. You can take on the identity of anger, of all these different things, when really, I believe they're external to you, and you can face them and you can master them without being dominated by your emotions, which is a big thing in today's day and age. I think people believe too many thoughts in their mind. And I think that's why I liked cannabis, because it would help me face those thoughts from a different angle, and I would be less judgmental towards myself. So there was a positive benefit early on, but now this time I think I've gone past that. And in my other video where I said I was quitting weed, I forgot to get to the point I was saying on one of these points that I was making, was that let's say you have a scale from 1 to 10, right? High vibration, low vibration. Low vibration being low emotions, anger, depression, sadness, all these negative things we associate with negativity. And then on the top of the scale is just like bliss, right? Just carefree, purpose, no worries, just taking life, grabbing it by the balls, and doing what you're supposed to do as a man or a woman. So I was saying how it got me up to a 5. And when you're at a 1 and you get to a 5, that's amazing. So it can be beneficial. But you still got work to do. So when you get to that 5 point, you can keep smoking, and then it's just going to be there. And then you can get complacent at the 5, forgetting that there's more steps that you could rise above without the cannabis. And I think cannabis vibrates at a certain level. And another thing, like I was saying with the fertilizers, the people who are growing it just for money, the plant has been bastardized to be just based on capitalism, make money, and just get high. And I think that there's more to it than that. And I think that when you consume a plant that has been grown by somebody who's not growing it for the right reasons, and they're willing to sell moldy weed to the public, and they're willing to cut corners, and they're willing to use the cheapest fertilizer because they want to make more money, even though it might be contaminated or laced with heavy metals and contaminants and pesticides, and they're willing to use pesticides, the vibration of the plant that might have been positive gets degraded. So I think that's another thing to consider, which is more of like a woo-woo hippie type thing that some people might not identify with, or they might think it's all spiritual nonsense, but I personally I see it. So this was just my 2-week check-in. I'm ready to keep going. If anybody else out there is feeling down and maybe they're judging themselves about their cannabis use, just know that it doesn't have to be your master. You can quit. It's going to be uncomfortable, but for me personally, I like to work out. I like to build muscle, and discomfort is a good thing to me. So getting out of your comfort zone, get into a new hobby, figure it out. And maybe you're still taper down. Just switch from smoking all day or before work to after work. And then from there, smoke maybe from a full bowl or 2 bowls of weed to half a bowl. It's totally okay to do that. And another thing I can add in there is that you can incorporate CBD flower. Hemp flower is amazing. I've noticed that when I have taken breaks in the past, when I would use CBD flower, it would almost be enough for me. Like, even though the THC amount is like a fraction of what you would get from high THC flower, when I would take a break and then when I would consume hemp flower, it would almost be like I would be sensitive enough to get that little tiny amount of THC with the abundance of CBD, and it was enough for me. So there's some really great companies out there. One I can recommend, it's not sponsored. I have never been sponsored by any companies, but Lost Oak Farms, their practices of growing, I forget where they're based out of. I think Oregon or Washington. Don't count my words on that one. But yeah, Lost Oak Farms is probably one of my favorite companies for high quality hemp flower. It is outdoor. I know some people only want to smoke indoor or whatever, but it's amazing quality, and they're really on point with their genetics. It's all CBD dominant. The THC levels will always be less than 1%. So that is another option. For some people who still want to partake, or maybe, again, they're tapering down. I've done that, or maybe you'd mix your THC with CBD flower. There's so many ways to do it. And just, do your research. Reach out to me with questions if you have any. But with that, yeah, I think I'll just leave the video at that. My 2-week check-in. We'll see how long this goes. I'm going to keep going for a while if I can. But yeah, I hope you guys are doing great. Thanks for watching this video. Comment if you have any questions. Please subscribe. Help me out. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.